Hello, and welcome to today's virtual happy hour tour. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families, to more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families, regarding health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. AARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, the AARP Magazine and the AARP Bulletin. During the months of November and December, AARP will focus to help you navigate the complicated healthcare system. Caregivers are frequently frustrated by their healthcare systems, from Medicare, insurance, and care coordination to inadequate healthcare staffing and medication management. We know helping your loved ones navigate their medical needs is hard. AARP is your wise friend, and we're here to provide support and guidance. We can also help assist with resources, expert content, and tools. Visit us at aarp.org/caregiving for more information. Thank you again, and I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy that you can join us. My name is Marshall Shore, and I am your host. So welcome, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, or even watching it on YouTube, where we have all of our episodes archived and starting to get everything put up onto Spotify as well as iTunes as a podcast, so you can listen in your car while you're at the gym. You can get lots of Arizona history. All right, so today is November 22nd. And on this date back in 1913, the San Marcos Hotel opened up in Chandler. When it did, it was the first resort to open up that was purely health. I mean, it had stables. It wasn't intended for all those folks who are coming here to recuperate from various lung illnesses like TB or things like that. It was sheer just fun, and it attracted lots of celebrities, and it is still going strong today, and you can go visit it. All right. It is also National Jukebox Day. Soundtrack is, jukebox for me have really provided soundtracks for so many events, whether it was going to a bar. I remember going to laundromats and plunking in quarters in the jukebox, playing a variety of songs. And, even though many of them are no longer record-based like the old ones were, there are CDs or even now digital, which give you access to thousands of songs. And indeed, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. That's why we're doing this on Wednesday and not tomorrow, when it's going to be a nice quiet day for so many, and so many not so quiet. So it is also Humane Society Anniversary Day. This date is when the Humane Society formed internationally, and they save thousands of animals' lives from horrific ends. So thank you so much for all the work they do to provide that assistance. Now, it is also Go for a Ride Day. Hopefully you don't do it right now, but it's a chance to get away from your computer, away from your phone, whether you're admiring the scenery from a car, from a bike, from anything, just get out there and go enjoy. And, and I think that's going to be a lot of what I know my day is going to be for tomorrow, is just getting out there and enjoying our delightful, amazing weather that we've waited so long for. So looking forward to that as well. It is also National Cranberry Relish Day. Now, I think it's interesting that it's like, as we get ready for Thanksgiving, it is interesting because it's like, spending time on the Northeast, cranberries were huge because they were indigenous. And so actually the Narragansett tribe were the first ones to mix it with honey and to be able to have it as more of a dessert or as a sweet. So we celebrate them as well as Thanksgiving tomorrow, because whether it comes out of a can or off a bush directly into your hands, it's all good. All right. Well, what can you expect from tonight's show? Well, we have a little bit of trivia coming up, and oh my gosh, you're going to be well, I know I'm excited about the trivia because there's some really cool topics that are going to come up during that. As well as we take a little bit of an Arizona music break. We talk about Little Arizona, a small town that has a cool history, as well as a beverage. And of course, we have a super special guest, but more on that in just a moment. Now, I said my name is Marshall Shore. I'm also the hip historian. So that means I get to play a lot with Arizona history. Why, just today I was at McAlpine's where I picked myself up a blueberry pie. They're already getting ready for Christmas. So be sure to get your order in early for a pie through them. It's a way to help them keep the doors open. As well as early next year, we are going to be celebrating 95 years with the Orpheum Theater with Arizona Unzipped. As well as on Black Friday, I am going to be doing a pop-up market over on Roosevelt. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be me and 49 of my closest friends bringing all kinds of interesting things. I've picked up a batch of t-shirts. So we're going to have Mr. Lucky shirts there, as well as a couple others. And we might have a surprise. I don't know if they'll be ready in time. If not, we'll definitely be able to pick those up at Festivus coming up mid-December on that 14th and 15th. That 14th, the Thursday and Friday. So, as well as if you get a chance, check out the Sunny Slope Historical Museum. They have a Legend City exhibit up right now through December. They're hoping to extend it, but it all depends on what's happening with the next show they have, as well as Tempe has an amazing exhibit up of signs from Tempe. And so that's really cool. Now, I see several of you have found the chat, so thank you so much for being there. Please chime in with comments and things, as well as you can always reach out to me on Facebook as Marshall Shore Hip Historian, Instagram, hip_historian, email hello@hiphistorian, or through the website, hiphistorian.com. We'll also be we've got a haunted tour coming up mid-December. I want to say, I'm not going to throw a date out because it's either the 11th or 16th. It's a Saturday. So, and then, oh my gosh. So, I went to go pick up my cocktail, and it just happened to be they were in the middle of doing some research and development for Melinda's Alley downtown. And so what they came up with for tonight's beverage is called Garden Song. Now, you'll notice there's a little bit of greenery in there for the garden. That's indeed a bit of dill garnish. So we have Zephyr Gem, some apricot liqueur, rhubarb liqueur, absinthe, lemon, simple syrup, and cardamom bitters. Oh, wow. With all that stuff in there, I was kind of like, what's it going to taste like? And it's really good. So I wouldn't be shocked if that winds up on a menu either at the Renaissance Hotel or something downstairs in their Melinda's Alley, kind of a neo speakeasy. And now is Little Arizona. We are going to talk about a small town in Arizona with an interesting history. And so McNairy, Arizona, which is in Apache County, has a population of just under 800 people, and it was founded back in 1925. Now, originally, it was called Clough, after a Mormon bishop who was there where they grew hay. It then became Cooley and was then purchased by the Katy Lumber Company out of McNairy, Louisiana, for lumber. And so in 25 is when it was renamed to McNary. They brought with them their African-American staff to work in the lumber yards. And it was that promise of steady work, good living conditions, and great weather that lured so many of them here. Now, it's interesting because the town was diverse. It had Hispanics, Apaches. It's interesting because it did become a segregated town. There is a lot of the town still standing today, even though, I mean, it's now dropped down in terms of population. In the late 70s, there was a fire, and that's when a lot of those lumber families left and moved on. And so Coral Evans, former mayor of Flagstaff, that's how her family got into northern Arizona, is by making that trek up north from McNary. Now, another draw down there is also Lake Holly. And so that is famous because, you know, it's tucked away on the White Mountains in the Apache tribal land and is a great place to go sailing, canoeing, kayaking, and camping. So it may be getting a little cold for that, but I need to try and figure out when I'm going to get up there because I want to see exactly what is left of especially some of those churches that were there. All right. Well, now is a time when we get to hear from somebody else other than just me. And so I am so excited to bring on my friend. Hello. Oh, and you are muted.
There we go. Hello, Marshall. Sure. Good morning.
Indeed. So good to see you.
It's good. Hey, thank you for inviting me on. It's going to be fun.
Oh my gosh, we are going to have a great time as we get a chance to talk about some Arizona history. And so here on Happy Hour, now we do trivia, but we do trivia a little differently than bars do it because with bars, all they care about is, do you know the answer? Yes or no? On to the next thing. Here, what we do is we get to talk about those answers.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I had some good friends who came from McNary.
I'm sorry?
I had some good friends who came from McNary.
You know, I need to get out there. It's like I want to go see. I know there's with the black church there's a small cemetery, so I want to go see kind of what shape that is in and just kind of see the town itself. And so it's got such an interesting history that I'm probably gonna have a little entourage that I go out there with just to kind of go explore.
Understood.
All right. So now you can keep track of your trivia. Some folks keep it. Now, if Anita's watching, she's got a special notebook that she uses. I know I've got friends that'll keep track of it in the chat session. You can keep track of it with a pen on your arm, whatever makes you happy. You are the only one going to be grading this. It is self-graded. So, all right. So our first question, number 1. What school readiness program assisted children with their emotional, social health, nutritional, and educational needs and is connected to Phoenix? Was it A, preschool, B, Head Start, C, Act 1, or D, Andre House? So which one of those was a school readiness program that has connections right here to Phoenix? All right, moving on to question 2. What groundbreaking children's television show programming did some of its youth right here in Phoenix get a chance to preview? Was it A, Romper Room, B, HR Puffin Stuff, C, Sesame Street, or D, Captain Kangaroo? What were some of the youth here in Phoenix got a chance to preview? What amazing program. All right. Question 3. Lula Brooks' master's thesis was on growing which culture in a test tube? Was it A, polio, B, malaria, C, valley fever, or D, tuberculosis? So which one of those do you think she wrote about? And I think we'll find out about more of that involvement, but just a few minutes. All right, question 4. University of Arizona created the Cotton Research Center in what city? Was that A, Tucson, B, Phoenix, C, Maricopa, or D, Eloy? Which one of those cities do you think U of A created the Cotton Research Center? All right, question 5. What is aquaponics? A, fish farming, B, farming with only water, C, a music group, or D, growing plants with fish? Which one of those do you think is the most accurate definition of aquaponics? All right, question 6. Who was the first U of A's aquaculture extension specialist? Was it A, Ed Mendoza, B, George Brooks, C, Cody Williams, or D, John Hart? Who do you think was the first U of A agriculture extension specialist? Question 7. What were victory gardens? A, plantings ordered by Judge Judy. B, a garden planted by the Tewksbury family of that famous Family Feud. C, planted for World War II. Or D, planted during the Civil War. All right, moving on to question 8. Pullman porters were associated with what kind of travel? Was it A, bus travel, C, cars, C, stagecoach, or D, trains? What kind of travel were the Pullman porters associated with? And question 9. What does SRP use to keep the canals clean? A, a vacuum, B, fish, C, scrubbing machines, or D, water jets? All right, which one of those do you think SRP uses to keep their canals clean? All right, question 10. The Williams and Jones Construction Company were known to build what in South Phoenix? A, schools, B, churches, C, banks, or D, housing? And I'm excited that we have a bonus question. And that bonus question is, Martin Luther King spoke where in the Valley? Was it A, Tempe Library, B, Tanner Chapel, C, City of Phoenix Hall, or D, Trinity Cathedral? Where do you think Martin Luther King spoke here in the Valley? All right. Well, you are locking in your final answers. And hello, Deb. Glad you were able to take a break from honey baked hams. All right. So while you are locking in your final answers, we are going to talk a little bit about Dyke and the Blazers. They started off in Baltimore, moved to Arizona to be huge successes. And just as doo-wop was kind of dying out, that's when they got here. But, you know, Dyke went on to have an amazing music career, and they wrote a song called Funky Broadway. You know, you've probably heard it by Wilson Pickett, but it is indeed a song they wrote. A lot of people think Funky Broadway is about New York City's Broadway, but it is about Broadway in South Phoenix. All right, so now who is ready for some answers? I know I am. And I'm sure, George, you're ready for some stories.
Yes, I am. I mean, I can give some background on some of those pictures.
Perfect. All right. So question 1, what school readiness program assisted children with their emotional, social, health, nutritional, and educational needs and is connected to Phoenix? And that would be Head Start.
You just tell me when to pop in.
Okay. So tell us about Head Start and Phoenix.
Alrighty. Back in the early 60s, my father was sent here from New York City to found the church. And in that process, he looked around his church and he decided, hey, he started in South Phoenix. He said the kids here could use some more education so they can do better and be ready for kindergarten. So as part of his master's or doctoral work, he wrote it up, looked for money, went back east, And what he wrote became the foundation of what today we now call Head Start.
Wow. That's amazing that now such a national-wide program had its roots right here.
And it's possible that Southminster Head Start was maybe the first Head Start center in the country, but it was definitely one of the first Head Start centers in the United States.
Wow. I knew that Head Start had quite a foundation here. I didn't realize it was the founding. That's really cool of Head Start. All right. Moving on to question 2. What groundbreaking children's television show programming did some of our youth right here in Phoenix get a chance to preview? And that would be Sesame Street.
Marshall, you have to sing the song, man. Come on.
Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Indeed. So what is the connection between Phoenix and Sesame Street?
Second part of the first story. A few years later, after the church was founded and after Head Start was begun, there was a call for there to be testing centers for a revolutionary new program coming out of New York City. And so there were 10 testing centers established across the nation, and Southminster's Head Start here in Phoenix was one of them. And I remember those lousy black and white TVs they gave us. But before Head Start was broadcast, they tested it on children here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, it was really cool. So when I was looking for stuff, I did find this evaluation they did back in 1970. Mm-hmm. And it actually mentions your dad, who was responsible for ensuring that our Phoenix sons and daughters rose to the occasion.
No, that's a nice quote. In fact, please send, if you haven't already, please send that to me.
I will send you that document. It's multi-pages. Also, there's so many connections to Sesame Street here. Joan Gans Cooney was also one of the founders of Children's Television Workshop, and she was from here.
Oh, well, that kind of puts some things together. Some connections were already established that I wasn't aware of. That's very cool. Thank you.
Well, see, and I was wondering, and I was trying to find if there was a connection where the two of them may have met. But I know she did at one point go to ASU, so it's very possible that maybe your father and her met at some point.
I'm pretty sure that they did. I have no proof whatsoever, but the coincidence is too large to ignore.
Right. And one thing I love is the fact that when you talk about current Sesame Street, there are 2 of the wranglers for puppets that actually live right here, which is cool.
That is.
All right. Question 3. Lula Brooks' master's thesis was on growing which culture in a test tube? And that would be C, Valley fever.
Now, let's say a little bit about that. And thank you for finding that picture of Mama. Yes, indeed. Valley fever was a big deal. It still is. It's a disease that we don't hear much about, but it has never been cured. And people, in fact, someone that I know actually caught it and was in a bad way sometime in the recent past. They're spending a lot of money still trying to cure this disease, but you can't cure a disease until you learn to grow it in the laboratory. Now, back in the 1950s, there were a lot of African-American women who were working in various ways. Some of them were called Hidden Figures. It was an amazing movie about those who worked in aerospace for NASA, but they worked in other areas of science, and Mama was one of them. And she worked for an ASU professor, and she was the one who discovered the way to grow valley fever in the laboratory. That is proving to be the foundation, likely, of all the research they're doing today, because they still haven't cured the doggone disease. She left that profession, however, because she didn't want to bring that very nasty disease, because back then the biocontrols in the laboratory would never be accepted today. And she would not bring that home to her bouncing baby boy, namely me.
Well, I am so glad that she didn't stick around and bring that home, because that is I mean, I've got friends that have gone through it. And yeah, so that's amazing that and I think that's part of that, just that hidden figures. I mean, so many folks that have done amazing things were never allowed to actually accept credit for what they'd done.
The only knowledge, only data, only thing written down about what she did was they allowed her to use the data for her master's degree. And I definitely have a copy.
Very good. All right. Question 4. The University of Arizona created the Cotton Research Center in what city? And that would be Phoenix. And it was South Phoenix.
So you all know the Broadway curve? That entire area used to be cotton fields, a lot of them. And so a number of research stations focusing on cotton were built in that area. The Cooperative Extension Office is still there, but the Cotton Research Center was also there, where they did a lot of work in developing better strains of cotton to be grown here in Arizona.
Wow. And there's still something is there called the Cotton Center. It's more industrial.
Yeah, well, they named, when they rebuilt and sold the land to a developer, he or she named whoever that was, named the whole development in that area, which are industrial buildings, hotels, restaurants, etc. Called it the Cotton Center. And the building is still there, and the Cooperative Extension Office is still there at 43rd Street and Broadway. And for those of you who don't know, Cooperative Extension is that organization that it was founded by the federal government so that everyone in the United States would know how to grow food in their counties. And so it's through the U of A in Tucson, and the county office is still there at 43rd Street and Broadway.
Wow, but I love that name kind of carries on the history. So even if you don't know the history, you at least know that there was something there.
And yes, and I for one, who watched the whole area being redeveloped as a child, I appreciate that history.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what is aquaponics? Growing plants with fish.
And my turn, I suppose. I want to thank Marshall for putting this up in here, because it gives a connection to me. This is what I do. I'm an agricultural scientist. My daddy was a preacher. You hear in the voice, and my mama was a scientist, and so and so I don't ever need a microphone, and so, And so my focus has always been, how can we figure out some way to bring these high-tech growing methodologies into urban areas like Phoenix, where it could transform entire neighborhoods. We could figure out how to put this into backyards. And so that's my particular area of work that I enjoy tremendously. And thank you for including it. And it's going to make some difference, because we can grow vegetables of every kind, nearly not everything, but 100 different ones, and fish as well. Such great potential. Looking forward to see what we can do with it.
So you were talking a little bit when we met for coffee that time about how large scale, but also even like backyard.
Yeah. Well, there are two ways to look at this, and for very different markets, and both of them have a great deal of value for urban areas. Because back in the pandemic, we saw very clearly that when the food chains get broken, it's hard to get food into the urban areas. The food was all where it was supposed to be in the rural areas, but the transportation, the food links weren't working. And so they have this thing called vertical farming, which is amazing. You can grow an acre of land, at least the amount of food for 300 acres of crops, because it goes vertical. But secondarily, there is a market that is more community-based. You can put them in backyards if you want to. It's kind of a toned down method of the vertical farming uses as well, and aquaponics is one of those. And this is allows for communities to have whole industries. It allows for communities to focus on crops the vertical farms might not be interested in, and to have and also for people of various ethnicities to be part of this tremendous and growing industry.
Wow, that's really cool. All right. So question 6, who was the first U of A's aquaculture extension specialist?
Me. I have to say it sometime. Okay, what's that all about? Again, this thing, the Cooperative Extension Service. Okay, that is their job to make sure, again, that everywhere in the United States that people know how to grow food, and there's an office in every county of the United States, in the islands, the territories, Arizona, and it's all run through the main land grant school, which in this case is the University of Arizona. And at the university, there is somebody at the professor level who is an expert in how to grow citrus and how to grow cattle and how to grow cotton and on and on. And I was their first specialist expert in growing fish. And I was brought in to test and see if there was maybe we could do an industry here.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was fun. Now it's become kind of a lifelong both vocation and advocation.
So, okay. So do you grow produce at home?
Yeah. No, we have. We often have. We don't have one running right now for various reasons, but for years I have had aquaponics growing in my backyard. I did a lot of work to redevelop it in a way that makes it easy to use in our Phoenix urban areas. I figured out a way to turn, these kiddie pools we see in people's backyards, usually full of green water growing mosquitoes. We figured out how to grow those, how to turn those into food production systems. So instead of growing mosquitoes, we're growing fish and collard greens and watermelons and all kinds of vegetables. And it allows us to kind of reinvigorate that old idea that we mentioned a few moments ago of the victory gardens. We can, using a little 21st century magic, you can change the flyer, but using a little bit of 21st century magic, the aquaponics allows us to produce this food the same way they did back in the old victory gardens when they have much larger backyards.
Wow. That's just amazing. And so you brought up victory gardens. So question 7 is, what were victory gardens?
They started out, I don't know the whole history, but I know enough to talk about it. They started in World War I, and the idea, what they would call them, the war gardens. And the idea was that the population of the United States, but all the allies did this. It wasn't just in the United States. But the major amount of food from the professional producers were going to the war efforts. But you still had to feed the people. So the idea, and was supported by the federal government with all kinds of programs, was to encourage people who lived in the cities, for example, to grow food in their backyards. And it was a highly successful idea. It went through World War I, and then in World War II, they changed the name to Victory Gardens, which was more appropriate. And the anecdotal information was from the writings of Dr. George Washington Carver, because of his writing about the victory of gardens, and I hope that's true. But they did change the names to Victory Gardens, and in 1945, the Victory Gardens produced 40% of the food in the United States from backyards.
Wow.
Wouldn't it be cool if we could do that again?
That would be amazing because I know what I would plant. I know what I'm putting on the plants. So I know if I choose to put pesticides or not, that's my choice. And so, wow, that would be really cool.
Just a thought.
Indeed, just a thought. All right, question 8. Pullman porters were associated with what kind of travel?
Once again, train. This is a story about my grandpa. The Pullman porters, Pullman, and after the Civil War, there was need for employment, and I don't know the entire story, but you can piece together the parts I do know. This guy named Pullman had the idea that he could start put African American men on these trains to serve the increasing numbers of passengers. And there was a lot to this service that he had. There were hotels that he built. It was amazing history of the United States. In fact, there's a big hotel in Winslow called La Posada. If you're not familiar with that, that is one of the old Harvey House hotels that served the trains going back and forth to Los Angeles. Well, this service allowed an amazing amount of high quality jobs for African American men, and they worked the trains. They served the needs of the various customers. They got to know the customers, and often in knowing the customers, they were able to make relationships that allowed many of these men to earn a decent amount of money and actually do very well for their families. My grandfather was one of these men. He was the dining steward, so therefore he was in charge for the train that I think we call the it's either the Southwest Chief or the Sunset Limited, whichever one goes through Flagstaff. Today, now back then it was run by Santa Fe, but he earned enough money to be able to move his family from Chicago down to Phoenix, where he had a farm in South Phoenix, and he put all 3 of his children through college with that job. Him and my grandmother.
Wow. But again, there's that growing food.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
It is said that in some parts of Phoenix, and I was born and raised out in South Phoenix, so I know it well. It's now called South Mountain, by the way. No, they say that we're only 1 grandma away from agriculture. The families there are 1 grandma away from agriculture.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way to say that. And hopefully we can reduce that back to we're back to gardening. We're back to agriculture.
Now, it will be wonderful if the technologies could be developed to bring at least part of, of the traditions of the quality of food back to the proximity of the people in their neighborhoods. They're never going to do all of it. If you fly between here and Chicago, you see hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres of corn and other large crops. And it's always going to be that way. I would love to get the tractor concessions for those farms. But as far as things that we can grow here, we can actually grow about 40% of our actual food needs for a family in one of our current backyards. And if we could figure out how to do that cost effectively, it would be a wonderful way for our cities to move forward. And don't worry about the water, because these techniques also use a lot less water, and they are, as they say, sustainable.
Wow. So it's not got just the perk of having your own food source that's sustainable on its own, but then also even that water is sustainable as well.
Yep. No, you get the high quality food for your family, including fish. and maybe some future crops we can't talk about yet that we're working on. Some nice crustaceans that might be cool. But you have a method of doing so that actually uses less water. When you're talking about 40%, the possibility of 40% of the food. Right now, it comes from somewhere else besides here. And so all of the things it takes to get here, we have to talk about as far as water use and the gases that are released, the carbon, etc. All of that is still there. But if we can bring it home, that is all reduced, and it provides us a more sustainable society and environment. But let me say one thing. The term sustainability has, in my humble opinion, has been very badly used by us scientists that are trying to explain to folks what it is. Let me give you a simpler. Now, this is me talking, in my opinion, but the term sustainability means the same thing it has meant since the word was invented. It means the ability to last for the long term. All this other stuff, from the electric cars, the aquaponics, the trains, and no plastics, all of these things are just the process we use to get there.
Okay. Understood.
And that, I know, as someone once told me, George, I never will believe in climate change. But if you can show me how sustainability can help my family, I'll do it. I was fine with that, because in doing so, it gives her what she needs, which everyone wants to help their family, but it also gives us the sustainability that the society needs to reduce all of the gases that are causing now global warming. I do believe in that. And all of these microplastics, that gives us the chance to address these issues, at the same time bringing her family and hopefully a lot of other families the direct benefits they need to prosper. I'm preaching. I'm sorry. It comes out of me.
I was thinking, as we're going, there's your dad in you. I can hear your dad. All right. So what does SRP use to keep the canals clean? Fish.
One more story. I never have been really good at telling stories. Now I was hoping that you would have put as one of your answers in there, jet skis, because I've always thought that these canals would be.
People used to water ski in the canals.
Oh, you did?
People have. So there were people. I've seen photos of a car running along the canal, pulling somebody on water skis, which sounds like a death wish waiting to happen, but.
It's still funny. Here's a secret that a lot of people don't know. Phoenix was a farm. Have you ever wondered why all the streets are north, south, east, west? Those are the edges of the old farm fields. And then they built over it, as they are still doing in some of the outskirts of Phoenix and Levine and Buckeye and everything else. As the cities develop, they take the land that was already there with farms, and they simply build it in that particular grid. People have been farming here 5,000 years, because people don't know this, but all the water in Arizona, most of the water in Arizona ends up in Phoenix before it flows to the Colorado. We got 7 rivers that all come into Phoenix that people have used for Arizona. I don't remember them all, but it's the Salt, the Gila, the Agua Fria, the Hassayampa, the Santa Cruz, and a few others. And the name of these towns, like Queen Creek or whatever, the creeks were real, okay? But we had simply used up all of that water. And so these canals were used by the Uugam for 5,000 years, to bring, and it was a remarkably sophisticated irrigation system that they built. And then when the populations changed in the 1800s, the engineers used the same alignments to build the canals over what they did. And this is why you find so many places along the canals that have historical relevance to the tribes, because people have been farming there all this time. But then they built the canals, and for years they used chemicals, to keep the canals clean, because you have to keep the water flowing. But then they discovered that there's certain kinds of fish that you can use. The species name, and you're gonna love this, is Actinopharyngiodon idalia. Highlight that name. They're called grass carp, but they are living lawnmowers. And they get quite large. They can get the 3 or 4 feet large. They're big fish, but they use them to keep the canals clean instead of using chemicals, which is very, very cool.
Right. No, that's great, that not putting chemicals in our water, but actually using fish to keep the canalways free.
Yep, it's called biological controls. But you can when you go walking along the canals, because they are more and more being turned into recreational areas, which is very cool. You'll see signs there, like if you say you're fishing and you catch one of these, put it back.
Oh, because they have work to do.
They have work to do.
Wow. All right, question 10. Williams and Jones Construction Company were known to build what in South Phoenix? D, housing.
And this is one more amazing story of our city. Williams and Jones, 2 amazing, great men, great families that still reside in South Phoenix. For example, Travis Williams, the tall gentleman you see in the photographs there, is the father of former city councilman Cody Williams. And so, and then I believe also in the Jones family, former city police chief Jerry Williams was part of that family.
Oh.
If I'm remembering it correctly here, of course she'll hit me if I didn't say it correctly. But Jerry is a good friend. I've always been a Jerry Williams fan, and we saw her put on the uniform. It's just wonderful, homegirl, very nice. And they provided much of the initial homes that were built during the late 50s and early 60s. I believe one of the developments was Park South, if I remember correctly, and I lived in Park South for my entire childhood, and those homes that they built, and they're all still there. They've been renovated, of course, made better, but and then they used their resources, of course, to do other things in South Phoenix that were highly memorable. And so both of them are a part of our city history that people need to know better. And also because of I think of his military connection. I'm not quite sure. Travis Williams was also a Pullman porter. So he has that background. But there is a City of Phoenix Travis Williams Center on South Central that honors his presence.
Wow. And I love your suggestion about I need to get Cody Williams on this show as well.
Yes, you do. Cody has an amazing history to tell. Yes, he does. And he knows so much, and he did so much.
Very cool. All right. And then we have our bonus question, number 11. Martin Luther King spoke where in the Valley?
And the location was the oldest African-American church in Arizona, Tanner Chapel. I believe it was in 1964. But first, let me explain the photograph. On the right, you see Dr. King. To his right, you see, I'm not quite sure who that is, but I think right to his left is Ralph Abernathy. And then in between King and everyone else, that's my father. And then to our left is Dr. Lincoln Ragsdale. Dad was the president of the NAACP. and he and many others. There was no, he was the president, but he stood on many amazing people who made this happen. People always talk about the leader, okay, that name, but without help, without people who believed in this dream, nothing would have happened. And I knew a lot of them. But Daddy, as the president, is given credit for inviting Dr. King to speak in Phoenix, 1964. The picture here is at Sky Harbor. Back then, they didn't have the jetways they do now. They got off the airplane into the heat, coming down the stairs. But he came to Phoenix. He gave a talk at Tanner Chapel, and then he gave a talk that evening at ASU. The amazing thing is that Lincoln Ragsdale recorded the entire event, and something happened after his passing that those recordings were lost, but then were found recently in a Goodwill. And whoever found them took the time to listen to them and understood what they were, and then provided them for archiving to ASU.
Oh my gosh. Wow, when you said there was a story behind this, oh my gosh, I am so glad that someone found those and knew that they were important.
Mm-hmm. Look, he had many recordings from the civil rights movement. The King was just at Tanner was one of them, but there are many others, and ASU has those archived, to my understanding.
Wow. Okay, so now I have something else to go off and research. Do I want to go hear those?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
They did have them online. I don't know if they still do, but they did have them online.
Okay, I will that's easy to find out. So I will plug, and if I'm able to find them and link to them, I will post those also on Facebook on Arizona History Happy Hour. We have Marshall Hip Historian. I will post the link there so that way people can hear those. That's really cool. I didn't realize that they'd recently discovered them.
Mm-hmm. It was I think maybe 5-6 years ago, but they were lost and they were found. And thank goodness the person who found them understood what they were.
Wow. That's just incredible. Oh my gosh. All right. So I always like to ask how they did. And it's not so important how many you got right, but my gosh, look at the stories and the things to now look into. So, and I'm like trying to figure out, well, how do I become part of that 40% of growing in my backyard? So
we can talk.
I have a feeling we might have a topic. So very cool. Well, George, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your family history as well as your passion.
Well, thank you for inviting me. When I got the invitation from you, I'm like, why is the hip historian contacting me?
I remember that. And I was like, because you have these really cool stories about your slice of Arizona.
Well, I'm glad I listened and you were persistent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night and have an amazing Thanksgiving.
And to all of your audience and to you, thank you. And you all enjoy the next days of deliciousness. Just don't get sick.
Exactly. Cook your turkey long enough.
Yes. Though some places in the world don't eat turkeys. They actually have a carp. Carp get real big and they have a Christmas carp.
Oh, but not a canal carp. Don't eat the carp in the canal.
No, you don't want to do that.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your evening and I will talk to you soon.
Good night and thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh. It's funny because I thought I knew some of the stories and then there's more. And so that was just incredible. Thank you so much, George. That was so much fun. Oh, so now you'll see why I say, if you're watching on Facebook, you really should share because, oh my gosh, I mean, we ran the gamut in terms of that history. And I love, there's like, oh, I'm not very good at storytelling. Oh my gosh, you are amazing. And I love how you like teased me a little bit when we were chatting. And then there's this whole other part of the story. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so please share on Facebook if you can, so others can see and hear how much fun we're having with history. And so From the Vault is something you might drive by or something, that you just kind of wonder what that is. And so, recently it was announced that Azteca Plaza is going to be closing. And so after 70 years of providing services and most lately bridal for men, women, entire families, it's like, and it's been interesting watching on Facebook the number of people that have talked about the generations of folks going through Azteca Plaza. But you'll see right in the middle of this photo is not just Azteca Plaza, but also a lamppost. And so what's unique about that lamppost is it came from Legend City. So in 84, when everything was sold off, literally everything was sold off, including the lamppost. And so the Azteca family that ran it won those lampposts and installed them in Azteca Plaza. So it has been sold. And so I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen now with that land. And I'm hoping that someone saves those lampposts because I think it's really cool that they've had this whole other life and they can now have another life. So next week, you'll definitely want to tune in, and that will be back on a Thursday as we are, since Thanksgiving's tomorrow, we had to do it tonight. But next week, we have Monica from McAlpine's. And so talking about the history of McAlpine's, that restaurant, there are so many stories, some that are true, some that are not, and I'm sure some that we're still going to discover stories about. And so that will be a show not to be missed. And, I want to wish you all an amazing Thanksgiving. I mean, I'm going to be enjoying tomorrow a blueberry pie from McAlpine's. I picked it up earlier today. And, it was so much fun because it wasn't just run in, grab my pie and get out. Oh no, it was like my friend Julia was there. My friend Brad was there while I was picking up my pie. I haven't seen Brad for several years. And so it was great to see him outside of Facebook. So it was all kind of like old home week, which was fun to just get a chance and chat with these folks. So, I love if you have any stories, questions, suggestions, comments, I love to hear from you all. And so please share those around. Now, as we get ready to say goodnight, I love to give a shout out to Chris and Cole for that great video, as well as PJ and all of the bartenders that were working as they were doing some R&D. That sounds like it would be a fun night to attend, would be when they're trying out all these different cocktails. And so that is indeed Garden Song. And so, since we talk so much about Sesame Street, I thought it would be fun to, as we say goodnight, I am going to share a video that one of the puppeteers now on Sesame Street, who actually makes puppets, she made. So it is a puppet of myself and the state capitol. Some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, but here you go. Hello, I'm Marshall Shore, Arizona's hip historian. Today I'm joined by the Arizona State Capitol because it was recently proclaimed online to be the ugliest state capitol in America. How did that make you feel?
It makes me feel mad and upset. I'm over 115 years old, older than the state itself, and those folks at that list took a pic of my bum and called it ugly. Though I've had some work done, I don't feel that they were correct nor very polite.
You know, Capital, you're looking quite dapper today.
Well, thank you, hip historian. I'm a humble Capital, nothing too fancy. I'm all about local. My foundation that keeps me standing here was carved from our own nearby landmark, Camelback Mountain. My top came from Yavapai County, and the ground level is granite from South Mountain. But I have to boast about my copper top. It was old and dinged up. The wonderful youth across Arizona saved their pennies to buy me a new shiny copper dome. Thank you.
Who's with you today?
My children, the House and Senate. See, Arizona has grown a lot over the years. Instead of moving or getting rid of me and getting something new and fancy, they were added as needed. Some call them too modern, lacking class, but they are children of their era and show how we've grown since my territorial days.
Do you like it when people come to visit?
Oh, of course. I adore visitors. We're the home by and for the people. You can even get a tour of all 4 floors and hear the stories that make Arizona's history great.